You see how you can't do it. You can't play it exactly how it.
Yeah, the copyright will get us the Beatles.
Straight up on the beat.
Let it be.
But there you go.
If I didn't get that one, I was just going to quit.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Great Measures. My name is Richard. This is Judson.
Great measures, man.
It's been a couple months since we've done
And women.
Song by Death.
Death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I didn't like the last one. Or did I?
You didn't like the first one.
Didn't like the first one.
Yeah.
I was okay with the last one. The other one.
Yeah. What did we do? We did the flesh and the power it holds, and then I think we did symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're gonna go back a little bit to 1988. This is from their second album called Leprosy. The song is called "Pull the Plug."
Pull the plug. Death. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Ready?
Yeah, sure.
So yeah. All right, "Pull the Plug" by Death.
Hey, what was that first song that we tried to do that didn't get that got blocked all the way?
Voice of the Soul.
Voice of the Soul. Okay, I just couldn't remember the name of
You
it.
can go back and do that one if you want to.
Proceed on Pull the Plug, Richard.
I'm about to pull the plug. Ready?
Yes. Excuse me. Let me do all those notes.
What you think about it?
It's still schizophrenic.
Yeah.
That's just their style, huh?
Yeah. So like I said, this was the second. They have so many different sounds with different albums. This was, like I said, 1988.
Nothing against schizophrenia.
No, absolutely not. But it is. The transitions are very abrupt, and
Yeah, just
they don't really
correlate to the one
flow.
before. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they flow because he puts them together and they become its own song. But yeah, there's no transitional feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
The guitar solo was ripping.
Yeah. I always think when I hear, and this is going to be a really dumb thing to say, and it's a very obvious thing to say, but it's always something that kind of stands out to me when I hear like something from this album, the Leprosy album, or anything really that Death did. I'll think about the year that it came out, and then I'll compare it to something else, and I think about how different. Like we just did a few weeks ago, Blackened by Metallica from Injustice for All, same year this came out. And you think about the difference, not only in the metal world, but just the music itself, the contrast between the two.
Different level.
Yeah. I mean, the extremity of one, and you hear Blackened and you're like, dude, that song is so heavy and it rips and it's so fast. And then you hear this and you're like, they did something completely different.
The complexity is on a different level.
With the harsher vocals, and his vocal styles are different, album to album mostly. It's still the same guy that we heard on the first two songs that we did from Death.
Did they change at some point? He's the same, right?
He's the same, yeah.
Well, it was.
Yeah, he passed away. Chuckschuldiner.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, if we were to compare those two,
It's different. Like I don't necessarily look at it and go, oh, this is better than this, or this.
yeah,
is,
not in
this
terms
is,
of better and better. But
yeah,
it's
I just
definitely
look at like same exact year. What influences? I look at it that way. So the influences that led to, and I'm just using '88 specifically. There's so many other albums, but we just did Blackened, so that's fresh on my mind. But the contrast in influences, or what sparked Death to become Death and play, the vocal style, the tunings, the technicality, the chaotic transitions, compared to Metallica, who, they've always kind of cited their influences from the new wave of British heavy metal for the most part. I mean, obviously there's other influences there. Kirk Hammett with Hendrix and, a lot of other, Anyways, the contrast in influences that these people who are probably roughly the same age, what led them to play such different styles
madness.
of metal.
Madness.
How so?
Because I think that dude's got some madness in him. Chuck.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, or jazz fusion.
Yeah.
These melodies that he just throws in there. I mean, they're all pretty much around the same root, but they, and it's all sort of diminished and
The mix of it.
no, just a lot of notes
okay.
they play.
I see the diminished. Yeah, I see.
They build tension in these small moments. Nothing against Metallica, but it seems like Metallica is more accessible to the masses.
Absolutely, for sure.
Based on its simplicity, a little. Looking through the lens of the song we just heard, Metallica is a lot more of a simple.
Sure, and that's not an insult. That's not a slight.
No,
it's just an
more
observation.
put together, and that's fine. People need. Oh, so if it's harder to grasp a hold of, there are less people that can grasp it because. Just because if people, the easier it is to sort of grab, they're gonna, and Metallica, and that's fine. But it doesn't seem like Death is in any way compromising, not to say Metallica did, but compromising what the hell he wanted to do in the moment.
Absolutely.
And thinking about the listener at all, which I find to be, that's how a lot of musicians, and I know whenever I'm writing music, and if I'm writing music with my brother or whoever else, we will sometimes kind of be like, I really don't care what they think. In fact, I may even write something that I know is gonna sort of put them off. To see who will come to it then, and those are the people. Sounds like Death's that kind of music where they're not thinking of you.
Yeah, they're writing what they want to write.
100%.
Yeah.
But then,
not that Metallica doesn't. I think that also goes back to influences, right? Like
maybe, I don't know.
I think it does.
I don't know if it goes some. Well, then what do you think Death's influences are? Death is the influence for people.
Sure. So there were bands prior to Death that were. So there was this whole scene in Florida. Like all these bands came out of Florida. Not all of them.
Skinner.
Yeah, they were the first death metal band out of Florida. There were bands that released death metal before Death. Not long before, but before. And they were all friends in that same Florida scene. The guy, I'm going to mess this up. The guy who produced all these albums, I use the word all lightly, but it's a lot of them, the majority of them. His name is, I'm going blank, but I'm 99% sure it's Scott Burns. 99% sure. That was his sound. That was, obviously it's not the greatest sounding mix. But it was also 1988 and probably a very low budget in a homemade studio, but all those bands, there was bands like Monstrosity, I think Possession was from Florida, Cannibal Corpse came out of Florida, like those earlier bands, pretty sure Dissection came from Florida too. Anyways, I'm trying to get my wheels spinning here, but I think they were all influential on each other because they were all friends from what I gather. Like they all kind of hung out, jammed together. This person went to this band, this person came back to this band, It was this whole scene there in Florida. And I think that there was probably like this unspoken competition or this race.
No doubt. No doubt that exists. Who
can push the boundaries the most.
Who can top.
Yeah.
That is human nature in music.
Like this was their second album, so you go back to I go back to the 1988 comparison, and you got Metallica, who's already released 3 full-length albums prior to And Justice for All coming out, and that was their 4th full length, and they've already had Fade to Black, Master of Puppets, all these hits, that had already established them. I also think when you talk about the schizophrenia of it, or the chaos of it, or the whatever you want to call it, and it being less accessible than Metallica, but then you compare Metallica to, I don't know, somebody else in the 80s, late 80s, and how there are people that I come across today who still don't listen to Metallica and won't listen to Metallica because it's too much for them.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, Death is more of a musician's band.
Yeah.
Musicians are going to listen to that and go, "What?"
It's your death metal band's favorite band.
Yeah.
Your favorite death metal band's favorite band.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't even care about intentions. I don't care. It's all good to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think Death is worried about getting on the radio.
No.
And there may be, I know there's an element of, you could write, you can have moments of explosions of inspiration. You can write, say you're writing a song, and then you try to go into the next part, and it doesn't fit together. Man, that other section's awesome. So then that sort of sits there, and then you're writing something else, and then that section will go there. Mm-hmm. It sounds like he's just writing just music, and sometimes you can do that. You can put things here and put things there, and it just goes. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're writing in a key a lot of times.
Sure.
Metallica is just more.
Is this song, like, from a theory standpoint, or whatever the word is it pretty much in because you mentioned, like, even though they're doing different things with different tempos and it's all pretty much the same, is it all the same key?
Mostly. But I mean, with the whole, when they do those, he's so riffy. Mm-hmm. And and he's playing these riffs, these descending riffs, and then while he's singing.
Yeah.
So it's not just a part where a band like Metallica or other bands where they're just going dun 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 dun, dun, they're singing over that. He ain't doing that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to just remember, especially if you're dancing around something. If you're going once and then another time you go.
Yeah.
You're using the same notes.
Same notes, but different.
Yeah.
Progressions.
Like Death does all that stuff he'll change something up just a little bit, and it's not. I mean, once you get it, you got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's it can mess with you. It can mess with you, especially when you're and I love that about it. If you just modify hanging on to a note a little longer than you hung on to it before, and then skirting over other ones quicker, that makes a song. So if you what I mean is if you can write a three-chord song, and if you stay on one chord longer and then go to the other two quickly, and then in your chorus you go to the 5 of it and you stay there for a minute, then go back to the 1, then to the 4.
Yeah.
You can make all. I mean, mathematically you can make all kind of variations that are just endless. But when you're doing it riff-wise, it's just.
Yeah.
You have to really sit there and listen to it. I can listen to most Metallica songs and know how to play them in a sec, and sit here. Death, I'd have to listen to that. Wait a minute, let me hear that part again. Let me hear that part again. Yeah. But going back to what you were saying, sure there's going to be influences on them, but it just seems to me they're one of those bands, or he is one of those guys, if he wrote the bulk of the music, that so I don't think that I would speculate that he's not thinking of his influences when he's trying to write the music.
Sure. Okay.
And there are other people that do that now. They say, I want this song to sound like Radiohead, or I want this song to sound like Iron Maiden, or
Right.
I want to kind of do what they did in this. And you can mimic that and make it your own, and then talk about it later and say, well, that song came from this, And so when you have bands that like, I know Beck is a totally unique dude, but there are times you can hear that maybe he sort of wrote his own, and I'm not saying he ever said this, but people write their own "Wish You Were Here." You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, but there are other people that have no They have no intention of doing that.
So I
And they
think
get
too,
so ingrained in what they're doing and how they do it that it is a type of madness.
Yeah, and I think I may not have worded it properly. When I talk about influences, and
You're inadvertently influenced by things.
sure, and I think that's what I mean. Like he speculation. Chuck didn't sit down and go, this is going to sound like Possession, or this is going to sound like Slayer, or whatever. Like, because, you know, Slayer was doing a little bit of the heavier stuff then, and they had, you know, they were the heavier side of thrash, I guess you would call them, the darker side, either way. But when I've experienced this in my own life, and when I was avidly playing guitar all the time and a lot, and I would sit down and I would try to write out riffs or music or songs or whatever, it's just going to kind of bleed out of you. A certain sound, a certain style. If you've listened to this lane of music for this long, or this band more than others, I think some of their style is just going to naturally seep out. And that's kind of what I meant, was like, yes, he probably sat down and was like, this isn't going to sound like anything else. But his technicality and his way of riffing had to have come from,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I do, but there's subtle changes you can make in your mind when you're in a creative space that sometimes you don't even recognize. Some you can consciously turn on and turn off, but other ones you're sort of a slave to. That's what I think creativity is in some way. But I think that doesn't have to necessarily be music. It can be your intentions behind just your erratic life, or your lazy life, or, you understand?
Sure.
So just like the musical things come through inadvertently, so do other pieces of whatever you're influenced by in life, whether it be anger or happiness, whatever, or not being able to stay on one thought long enough, or staying too long in one thought. Those things come too. And I just hear, from having experience writing music, when I listen to Death, at least this song in particular, it doesn't make me think that he's more driven by what he's heard in the past as much as his need to get out whatever he's got inside of him. Of course, it's influence, but I just think that it would be difficult to find musically where he's coming from. It may be a little easier to find mentally where he's coming from.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
And because you can turn that stuff off. You can turn off, you know, if you've ever sat around and tried to write a song and you realize that you just wrote a Nirvana song accidentally, or you know, and I mean, that happens.
That's what I was getting.
And when you do that, you turn those things off, and you say, I don't want that, you know, I want to accidentally do that. It's really sort of, it can be cool, but then it's also really, it's disheartening.
Yeah.
Because you feel like, well, it wasn't original. I didn't get there. Yeah, I didn't get there enough for it to come out of me.
Right.
But I mean, a lot of this, what we just heard, is you could find a lot of classical music that does this type stuff. So I would say, if he was going to be influenced by music, you'd have to find some Wagner or something, or some Beethoven quartet stuff where he just plays. He has a small mode, and then he just plays with it the whole time, you know. But anyway,
cool.
Pull the plug.
Pull the plug. We'll pull the plug on this video.
Just tired.
Right now.
Yeah, just tired of it.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We are Great Measures. That was Pull the Plug by Death. My name is Richard. This is Judson.
Sure. Yep. Great Measures, man.
Have a wonderful
and women.